Good afternoon, dear master. My name is Edwin Espinosa, and I'm going to talk about the principles of language assessment. In the first part that we have is what is assessment terminology? It refers to the words that we use in education. These can help us to avoid confusing some words that appear to be the same, but they have different meaning. In the first part, we have assessment versus testing. While assessment and test are terms often used interchangeably, they have different meanings and purposes. The first one that we have is assessment. According to LMS 2024, assessment is a broad term that refers to all the different teaching methods trainers might use to evaluate, measure, and document their participant learning progress or skill acquisition. In other words, we can say that assessment is the process of describing, collecting, recording, scoring, and interpreting information about learning. What about tests? Testing are methods used by teachers that have a score or grade. It needs to have a rubric that determines the parameters to be assessed. Or in other words, we can say that testing measures the level of skill or knowledge that has been reached. The next part that we have is measurement and evaluation. Measurement is the process to generate values, grades, or scores. Independently, these values can be qualitative or quantitative. What about evaluation? Evaluation is interpreting the results of teaching, measurement, and testing. In the next part that we have is formal assessment and informal assessment. Formal assessment, we have some characteristics, that is progress of a student compared to other students. Specialized tests and quizzes are used, assessed by a state, and significant contribution to a final grade. What about informal assessment? The characteristics are progress of a student compared to their past achievements. We use classrooms tests and quizzes, communication or surveys, and oral presentations. This informal assessment can assess by teachers, parents, and students, and no significant contribution to the final grade. In the next part that we have is formative and summative assessment. In formative assessment, it helps the student to learn and practice. Throughout the course, identifies gaps and improves learning and focus on the process. In the summative assessment, it assesses the performance of students. We use this at the end of the instructional period. This collects evidence of students' knowledge and skills and focuses on the end result. In the next part, we have the types and purposes of assessment. The first one that we have is a proficiency test. This proficiency test evaluates students' competence in a general way. In this test, as in a placement test, we can know what is our level of any language. For example, in English is according to the CEFR, the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. And there are 6 levels. The first one is A1 and A2, that is English basic users. Then we have the B1 and B2, that is English independent user. And finally, we have C1 and C2, that is proficiency English user. Some examples of these proficiency tests, we can say IELTS and TOEFL tests. The next one that we have is the achievement test. They are assessments designed to measure an individual's knowledge and skills. The next one that we have is diagnostic test. Diagnostic tests are evaluations to identify student strengths, weaknesses, knowledge gaps, and learning needs. The next one that we have is a placement test. A placement test determines the appropriate level of students within a program by assessing productive and receptive skills. Here we have that we are talking about in a proficiency test, the Common European Framework of Reference of Language, like examples. And finally, we have the aptitude test. Aptitude tests serve as a predictive tool to forecast how well a student might perform in a particular area of study. Okay? And finally, we have the principles of language assessment. We have 5 key assessment principles: practicality, reliability, validity, watchback, and authenticity. Okay? In practicality, a practical assessment is easy to score and interpret. That's it. In reliability, a reliable assessment produces consistent results. In a validity, a valid assessment accurately measures what it claims to measure. The watchback refers to the impact of the assessment of teaching and learning. Assessment can positively or negatively influence. And the last one is authenticity. This means the task should be meaningful and relevant to the learner's language used in the real world. Here we have the reference, and thank you very much.